many are still grieving. Some families will be lost to one another forever. To those of you who face the difficulties of reconnecting with family and establishing ongoing relationships, we say sorry. We offer this apology in the hope that it will assist your healing and in order to shine a light on a dark period of our nation's history. To those who have fought for the truth to be heard, we hear you now.
You're listening to Adopt Perspective Podcast, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption. I'm your host and president of Jigsaw Queensland, Jo Sparrow. This podcast is a production of Jigsaw Queensland Post-Adoption Support Service. However, the views expressed are those of the people participating and not necessarily Jigsaw Queensland. The podcast discusses adult themes and listener discretion is advised. Today's guest is Sharlene Vonhoff, who was born in Brisbane in 1977. Sharlene was the first of two girls adopted into a farming family in regional Queensland. Today, she continues to farm with her husband, a third-generation farmer on the Darling Downs, where they've raised 4 children. Growing up adopted in a close-knit farming community has shaped Sharlene's experience in unique ways. As someone who still lives in regional Queensland, she has faced additional challenges in exploring her adoption journey without easy access to adoption-specific services. Sharlene is here today to share her story and how she began to truly explore her adoption experience in her 40s. Welcome, Sharlene. I'm so happy to have you join us today.
Thanks, Jo.
Sharlene, let's start by talking about your experience growing up adopted. Can you share with us what it was like for you?
Okay, so I've been thinking about how I'm going to start this, but yeah, for me, growing up adopted, I always knew I was adopted. My parents, I don't remember ever being sat down and told. It was just, I knew that I'd come from somewhere else. My mum didn't have me in her tummy as such. And that was more real for me when my sister, mum and dad adopted my sister from Brisbane as well. And I was on the journey with them as a 4-year-old down to pick her up. So we went and picked a baby up from the hospital. And that was probably then. I do have memories of that and knowing that I came from the same place, I guess. It sounds weird, but I came from the same shop. We used to talk about that a little bit, that you have to go to Brisbane to get a baby. So,
yeah.
Yes.
I can remember when I have another family member who is adopted and they're about 9 years younger than me. And I can remember when they came in, it was the first person that had come from the place I had because my siblings were all biological to my adoptive parents. So I can remember thinking, wow, this person came from where I came from. Made them a little bit more mine.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there was just this place that parents went to find these babies, and that was my understanding as a little person. I guess it was and then as a young child meeting, like as you went into primary school and meeting other kids that say, oh, I'm fostered or I'm adopted, and they too would be like, oh, where did they go to get you? Like, those were the conversations as kids. So
yeah. So when did you find out that you were adopted?
I think, it was probably just knowing more so when, around that 4 or 5 age, I guess, when I do remember being in Brisbane with my parents, and we brought my sister home, and I was given a bottle to feed her. And I have a really strong memory of mum kind of, setting up the beanbag in the lounge room and sitting me in there and propping this baby into my arms, and I had to feed her. And then when mum and dad wanted to take her back, I wouldn't let her go. I was like, this is my baby. So it was this sense of, I guess I knew that, they came and got me, and we went and got her, and it was all very
simple. So it just made sense. Yeah. Were you able to discuss your adoption with your family?
That's interesting, because I think I have a likeness with a lot of other adoptees I've heard on podcasts, but saying that it was known, but it was something we never really spoke about. And there was that part of me that I think I found it difficult to bring up things around adoption because whilst like my parents, we didn't have mirroring as such. Like I probably had familiar characteristics to my dad. Like people wouldn't kind of see us out and about and go, oh, those kids don't look like, the same as their family. We kind of blended reasonably well. We had similar features like our skin color and our hair tone, like all that kind of stuff. But um I think, yeah, I think, sorry, I've got a blank.
All right. It's
Um,
those conversations are I mean, how do you as a child put into words and articulate something that even as an adult is hard to put into
I think
words?
so. I think there was always this awareness, Joe. I think that uh, around the word adoption and knowing that my parents couldn't conceive and have their own children, I was really aware of that at a young age. I don't remember them telling me. It's like I knew
Yeah.
in a roundabout way of whether it was mum would say just small things here and there. And so I just knew it was a really touchy subject that they couldn't have their own children. So I just wouldn't bring it up because I was scared I didn't want to see my mum cry. I didn't want to, she wouldn't get angry. She'd just be really sad.
Yeah.
If we spoke about that kind of thing. And even, as a teenager, I remember getting in heightened discussions with mum and I'd be fighting and kind of, yelling and screaming, and you'd slam your door and go to your room, and I'd just go, "You're not my real mother."
Yeah.
That was very hurtful, but I think I just had all the questions and stuff inside me that I couldn't actually ask. So whilst, the relatives and Christmases and friends that were around knew we were adopted, we couldn't really talk about it in the home. It wasn't like it was safe. It was just, it was better not to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What about your sister? Were you able to discuss it with her, given that you're both adopted?
Yeah, she's a lot younger than me, and we'd always talk about, and we're quite similar looking too. And that was what was interesting. Like I have childhood photos. Mum would take us into the like Maya photo booth, and and we'd be wearing matching like tracksuit jumpers, and you would kind of go, oh yeah, they look a lot alike. And people would actually say that in photos. Mum would put us in matching outfits all the time.
Yeah.
And like we kind of laugh because we'd be like, oh, we've got the same hair, but that's weird. Like yeah, and we get the same haircuts and stuff like that. So we talk about we turned it into a fun thing to talk about. We'd never
Yeah.
talk seriously about it, like even when both of us would feel, we'd be feeling really sad or really angry about something. We didn't talk about our emotions or feelings around how that felt. When I just deal with that on my own, whether I was just feeling rejection or whether it was, feeling not belonging, I wouldn't go to her and talk to her about that. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's always amazing to me because there was a lot of members of not my immediate family, but extended family who were adopted. When I say a lot, like 4 or 5, I think.
yeah.
And I didn't have any discussions with them. It was like I knew that it wasn't right to, no one told me I couldn't talk about it with them, but I kind of knew that in certain pockets of the family, that was something that wasn't okay with their parents to talk about. And probably only with 2 of them since we've become adults, we've had some discussion. But even then, I'm sort of the bad adopter. He's gone searching and nobody else has. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So, what were you told about your adoption and your biological family?
So it wasn't until probably my teenage years. I remember doing an art assignment. I was at boarding school, and the art. I discovered this real love for art, and I started expressing a lot of my paintings, and my assignments at school came out in all these jigsaw pieces and like missing pieces, and it was really interesting exploring that. Yeah, so when I started kind of getting really curious around that age, probably grade 10, I guess, grade 10. I remember my first assignment being an adoption painting. Um, and I asked my parents, I said, I really just want to, I want to understand this more. I'd never asked them before. And that's when they gave me this yellow envelope, a government envelope that had a copy of just some of my details at birth, and I hadn't seen it before then. But it was really interesting. I was thinking about how I came about that envelope, and I remember as a kid searching through Mum's office. I was constantly searching for information, and then if there was any photos of my parents before I was born, I'd be looking in the background for information, like going, well, is my biological family in the background? Were they at that dance at that hall?
Yeah.
I was just constantly searching, and I actually went through my mum's entire filing cabinet looking for information. I couldn't find anything. And but then I didn't ask either. I wasn't scared. I was just, like I said, I didn't want to upset anyone. So
Yeah.
I was presented with this yellow envelope, and it had all the details on it. So I had my birth mum's age and just a brief description of her physical features. She had hazel eyes, which I have hazel eyes. Well, that's where they come from. And then it had a description of my biological father as well. So obviously no names, just physical features, and then their background of what they were doing at the time, their occupations. So and then one of the things she had in there, I mean, I was in year 10, and it was like she really enjoyed outdoor life and dancing. So I did this picture of this dancer, like, for my assignment, and it was two kind of silhouette figures, and one was dancing and the other one was lying down just lying down on their side, and that was me. And then there was this silhouette over top of as we were lying on a puzzle. It was on a puzzle, and a piece was pulled out and missing, and then she's above dancing. And it was really interesting because that was my grade 10 assignment, and that's when I kind of started exploring that for myself. But when I met my birth mother later on, I gave her that picture.
Oh, wow.
Pretty cool.
I mean, it's incredible that just at such a young age you were exploring it through art. I mean, that's almost like doing your own kind of therapy, whether you felt it was at the time or not. Obviously, you're just drawn to it.
Yeah, it was something that, and art was that again was probably one of my giftings, as a talent that I had that my family didn't have. So I kind of, whether I was at school, I'd be in the art room, I'd be at home on holidays just working on art. It was something that was really, and it was therapeutic for me at the time. Now I look at it, I was going there to search myself, the identity part of it. So.
It's brilliant. So last time we spoke, you told me that as you got older, you decided you're going to search for your mother. What led you to start that search, and how did you go about it?
Yeah, so my sister, who was 4 years younger than me, when she turned 18, she found her biological mum. She found her birth mum, but she did it all without kind of telling the rest of it. So that was just, and I was just married and had moved back out to a property close by to mum and dad. So it was really interesting. The day mum got a phone call looking for my sister, it was her biological mum calling her, and mum and dad had no idea that this had happened. And I happened to be at mum's when that phone call came in, and I'm like, oh wow, like she actually did the search before me. And then that triggered me then too. I was like, oh well, my sister's doing that. That's interesting, but I need to look into a way of doing this where it's, I want other people in my life involved, I guess. And I contacted Jigsaw and kind of found a bit of a support group locally to start looking at what I was doing. And then I just left it alone. I kind of got a bit scared and I left it alone. And then it was in 2000, we had our first baby. We had our daughter. And then, having her and the pregnancy, everything was triggering. I was just like, then she was born, and a lot of stuff kind of triggered there. Whereas we had visitors in hospital, I remember, and I've got my in-laws are very how do I say it? I guess, family proud as far as, you know, the looks of how a baby looks. It's just like this side of the family, you know.
Yes, yeah.
And I remember feeling just gutted, going, well, the baby, like, I had the baby, like it's got to look like me. But
Yeah.
I didn't have any resemblances or photos to kind of go, oh yeah, well, she's got my eyes, or she's got, you know, my such and such grandma's toes, or
Yeah.
and so I had this, yeah, family come in and just kind of own this baby, you know, and I was just, yeah, that sent me in a big spin. And wasn't until our daughter was 2, I actually I met my birth mum. I'd gone through, basically, when she turned about 1, I went through the process, and it only took about 5 months, and then and then we met. So,
Yeah.
but definitely the spin of having my own child was what really set me off, because I wanted to know background medical. I wanted to get as much information as I could for this little baby that we brought into the world. And yeah, it was like I mattered, but I didn't matter as much as this baby to find out the information. It was like, no, she
Yeah.
needs to know everything.
Yeah. So how did you go about the search?
So I contacted Jigsaw, and then within, I went along to some meetings in our town, not far from here. They were just nighttime meetings, and I met this beautiful lady, and to this day I can't remember her name, but this was in 2001. And she offered to be, you know, just a bit of a mentor as far as how that goes. And yeah, we went through the process with Jigsaw, I guess, and I applied for my original birth certificate, and then we were able to apply for, I can't remember the order of it now, but it was basically my birth mother's marriage certificate as well, and the address that she was at when I was born, her sister still lived at that address.
Wow.
So there was still family and she is to this day still at that current address.
Yeah.
So she was actually easy to find. And then I did the whole, express mail. Like what do you call the mail when you send?
The registered mail, or
Registered mail. So I did a registered mail, old-fashioned handwritten letter, stating to her that, you know, this is my birthday. I believe you could be my birth mum. If you are, I would love to get in contact with you. This is my phone number. And I remember sending that letter, and then 2 days later, my phone rang, and it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And back then with the landline, I ran to the phone, and she's like, "Hello," and I heard the voice, and I knew it. I knew it was her. She didn't even say who she was. She goes, "Hello," and it was just the most, oh, the I can't even describe it, but I knew her voice. I just knew it. It's similar to mine, but yeah, and we kind of conversed on the phone for about 3 hours that day. She hadn't told her sons yet, but her husband knew. And she'd literally opened the letter. It was ripped on the table, and she rang me immediately. She didn't give it any thought. She just rang me. So it was a real blessing that she wanted to contact me straight away.
Were your adopted parents supportive of your searching?
I did let them know. So we had that phone call, and then we arranged to meet. Basically, I said, I'll come to Brisbane, and at this stage I had a 2-year-old. So we went down and stayed with relatives, and we met at South Bank under the flags. That's all we had. There's no mobile phone kind of real. I mean, she didn't have a mobile phone, so and she was public transport. She'd come in on a train, and she said, well, I'll meet you at 11 o'clock at South Bank. And so I'd sent my wedding photo actually to her via the post. And the day that I went, I actually wrote my parents a letter to say that this is what I was going to do. And I'd actually written them a letter it was like a real, I don't know, it was probably a bit of a eulogy letter, really. When you think of it, it was everything that they've ever done for me, and just affirming the love that I have for them, but that this is something I need to do for me at this time in my life. And they were really understanding. It was really interesting because I talked to my dad, close to my dad, and he said, when you went and met, when you met Rosie, your birth mum, when you went when you went and met her, he said, it was like your wedding day again. He goes, I gave you away again, but it's like it's another part of your life. I've got to share you with someone. And some people might go, oh, that's a bit strange, but it was really affirming to my heart for Dad to actually see it that way, that he knew I needed to do that, but it's like, well, it's just another piece of you I've got to share.
Yeah, just acknowledging how it felt for him.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and he's a farmer. He's kind of, doesn't express too many emotional things, but for him to kind of come up with that, I thought it was just really sweet. So they were very supportive, and then they couldn't wait to meet her either, but we kind of held off for a couple of months. I'm like, it's all very overwhelming. So yeah.
So let's talk about South Bank and that first meeting. How did it go? Everyone always seems to meet in a park, just about. Usually it's a botanical gardens in Brisbane, so South Bank's new for me.
The train station she was really familiar with. So, and I didn't know, I'm not great in the city either. So I'm like, I can get to South Bank. Expo 88, I'm good. I can get there. So, and I could drive in there. I couldn't because I don't like trains, but she's really, really confident with in there. So, yeah, it was weird. I had this I'd done up a folder, like a display folder with some photos of my life to give to her. And I knew she was coming from the train station. So I was sitting on this park bench. I still go there, and it's like not far from where the Ferris wheel is actually. And I was looking in the direction of where she was coming from. I was just looking at all these, 40-year-old women walking towards me going, is that her? Is that her? This is all before real emails and Facebook and everything. I had no idea what she looked like. She didn't send me a photo. And yeah, she walked towards me. It was really funny. Now I think about it. So I wear silver jewelry, and I love silver jewelry, and I wear a lot of it. Like I wear bracelets and bangles and stuff. And I just saw this woman coming towards me, and she just had an arm full of silver jewelry, like bracelets and bangles.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah. I'm looking at her, and it was really weird because this is such a little thing, but like my wedding set is white gold, so silver and white gold. And I kind of looked at her, and she saw me with a display folder, and she knew straight away. And I've looked at her and went, that's her. That's going to be her. She's walking towards me. And it was the jewelry. And it's so bizarre because like my adoptive mum, she's a gold person, always has been. And it's so funny, as a teenager, when I wanted jewelry, I just wanted silver jewelry. I didn't want gold jewelry. And Rosie, my birth mum, is exactly the same. So we jingle and jangle together with our bracelets. So that was our first meeting. And that's just something I remember. And that was in 2002. We hugged. I don't think I cried. It was such a weird feeling because I thought, oh, this is going to answer everything, and she was quite emotional. But then we just sat next to each other and we just talked. We just talked out so much stuff for like 2 hours. But yeah, and then I remember watching that Find My Family on, I think it was ABC or something, I don't know. But anyway, whatever show that was, and I'm going, yeah, it's a weird feeling. I haven't likened it to anything else really. It's exciting, but it's hard. It's you kind of, I think, I was building up for that moment, but then I think I was surprised with my reaction. I think I kind of, it was probably the first time I was really real with my emotions, I think, because you kind of expected to go, oh, this is so good, it's so great, whereas I'm just going, how am I really feeling about this? This is, oh, yeah. So,
I can remember doing that self-scanning myself at the time, just like going, I don't know what I'm feeling nothing. You know, you've seen people in reunions on TV where they're very emotional. I'm like, that is not how I'm feeling. I felt disconnected. I almost felt like I had my heart in a bag next to me, and it wasn't part of me. And there was just so much going on that I couldn't identify any of the feelings.
Yeah, I think I understand that, Joe. That it's not an out of body experience, but it's like you've got this heart in a bag.
Yes, yeah.
You've got this heart in a bag. It's there, but it's almost not inside. I don't know. It's a bit of womb stuff. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, understand it.
Yeah, very confusing time.
Mm.
So were there any surprises apart from the bangles when you met your mother, like that you weren't expecting to find out?
Um, so yeah, I guess she was really open with telling me about, I guess how she became pregnant with me. Um, yeah, I think she did speak pretty openly about her relationship, and then when they fell pregnant, and very quickly I learnt a lot about her life. And it was good because I just had such an understanding of why she had to make the decision she made. Like, she's lived in Brisbane all her life, but she lost her mum. Her mother passed away when she was 5,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just her and her sister. And then their dad was an older kind of guy, and he raised them, but he was just a bushy. He lived in the city, but he was just rough and bushy. And they had the old. I mean, she's still got the outside toilet out on the hill, like the Thunderbox, in Brisbane. And they were raised by, yeah, their dad. And then he passed away when she was 19. And then she was in a relationship at the time. And then literally, like, she kind of says the grief of losing her dad, yeah, her and her boyfriend, then I was conceived. Like, it was that kind of around that all that time where yeah, they fell pregnant when she was, yeah, 19, 20. And then it was just her and her sister that were living in the original family home, and she didn't have any support at all. So I think that was a really interesting story. It kind of pieced things together for me. But she went through everything, like from, almost having an abortion to buying a bassinet to buying a pram to trying to work out how to set up the spare room and bring this baby home, and then breaking up with him, and then they were on again, off again, while she was pregnant. And then she went to hospital because she had some health complications before I was born, so they kind of had her in hospital on a watch, and then when I was born, she made the decision to put me up for adoption, and he actually came to visit her in hospital after I was born. And she knows that I was still in the nursery upstairs, but she hadn't seen me. All the paperwork had kind of been done. And he said to her, he said, "How about we give this a go? I'm going to take you home, and we can do this. We'll have this baby." And she said to him, "She's gone. She's gone." So and it's beautiful when her and I talk about that, because she's like, "I was protecting you." And hardest decision ever for her to make. But even then, he was going to he was going to try and support her, but she just knew that wasn't going to be a good thing. So she made the decision completely on her own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was,
Ooh, it's a lot.
yeah, it's a lot. So but some of the things that I find are coincident, like we talk about the silver jewelry, but it's interesting because she went on to meet a beautiful man, and they decided that they weren't going to. Well, they got married, and then the very first conversation they had when they were dating, they were walking along one of my favourite beaches at Burleigh, actually, when they went on their first date, and they were talking about this baby that she'd given up. I think it was about 23, 24 years prior, and her name was Nicole, because she named me Nicole, and she said, she just shared all of that with him. Anyway, they ended up getting married, and when they decided to have their own family, she said to Mel, she's like, I don't want to have a pregnancy where I have a baby in March. I don't want to have a baby in March. That's Nicole's month, and that's just really important to me. And okay, that's fine. Anyway, their first child they had, he was born in December, so that was fine. And I think they had a miscarriage in between there. It was a bit of a tough time for a bit for them. And then she fell pregnant again, and she was due in April. So she's like, okay, in April. Anyway, just before her due date, she went into labour. And it's funny when she tells the story because she's a character. She's like got the arms are waving, and she's a really expressive person. And she's like, I was not having that baby. I'm not having this baby. And go to the hospital, and she's telling the doctor, I'm not having the baby. And anyway, her second son was born, and he was born 13 years to the day on my birthday. So him and I share the same birthday, 13 years apart. And that's why she didn't want to have the baby on that day. But it's interesting, she refers to that time as being her boys grew up not knowing about me, but for her that day was always a really difficult day. She'd lock herself in a room, and she'd just have a real depressive, isolating day where she'd just isolate herself and really cry and grieve me, this baby, Nicole. And she was like, God's really good. She said, I couldn't do that when I had a little toddler and had to do birthday parties. And so it turned it into a day of joy for her, where she had to actually acknowledge that.
Engage.
Yeah. And whilst she still had that time of thinking about me, it was, it kind of became a day that she had to celebrate with her little boy as well. So, yeah, that coincidence, or that's amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible, isn't it? I can only imagine how she felt on that day. Yeah. And whether or not it had a cathartic effect in the end and maybe desensitized that day a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
Or just complicated it. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think she had the heart in the bag all the time around then. Just feeling very separated from what to know how to feel, I think. Yeah. Understanding.
So have you been able to establish relationships with your brothers?
Yeah, so we probably try and see each other once a year. Like it's something we try and do. Fitting in the whole Christmas thing. I know that my husband always says, when it's like with a lot of families, but you meet your family, there's a reunion, but then you've got to kind of work out where you're going to slot everyone in and where you're going to fit in, and what kind of time do they want to have with you. Like, at the start we did see each other often. It was probably once a school term. Like, we'd try and make the effort to go to Brisbane, and they'd come out to the farm, and because they didn't know any farmers, so like, the farm's amazing. You come out and ride motorbikes, and all that stuff was really exciting for them. So but yeah, I'd see them once a year. We try and we just have a bit of a chat messenger that we send each other silly memes and things and stuff like that. But yeah, I've kept in contact with them. If I go down to the coast, one of my brothers is down there, and we always try and catch up for drinks or something at the beach. But we're quite, the younger brother, the one that's born on the same day as me. One of my best friends, she really loves him. She thinks he's awesome, and she just said, he's just like you, but a male. Like, and we're probably similar looking. As he has long hair. He's he's a surfy kind of guy, coasty, and it's like, our features are a lot alike, and he's the creative one. He's really, really arty. He can paint. So, but on my birth mum, she doesn't know where this artistic talents come from, because both him and I love our art. So Yeah.
So can I ask what these connections with your mother and with your brothers have brought to your life?
Okay, so I'll go back to that picture I did in grade 10 with that puzzle. It was like a severed piece of a jigsaw puzzle. And I think seeing the piece of a puzzle now, and it's good with, I mean, obviously Jigsaw Queensland's what this is about too, but it's so much about that piece, that puzzle. Like, does it actually fit into that missing one? Well, it kind of does, but it it's funny because I don't think it ever completes the puzzle. I think it's like that, the shape, and you've got that little round bit on one side. It's like that's kind of been broken, and it still goes in the puzzle, but there's just that little bit that's an odd piece. So I look at it a bit like that. I think, whilst I've got the information that I was looking for, and I've got relationship with my, biological family, there's still, probably 20 plus years that I don't fit in, and I don't. So that's that piece that isn't perfectly put back in. I think it's really interesting. You kind of, I love going to op shops and seeing puzzles, and the ones that are all, that's like, oh, have they been counted? Like, it's my puzzle doesn't, it's very rustic. There's a few pieces missing, and I think I've learnt to kind of go, that's really cool. It's not perfect.
Yeah, it's a great analogy.
Yeah, thank you. That's how I see it. I guess we're all different pieces too, but I think for that, I don't have a picture of that art, but the art piece I did in grade 10 was very much so as a 15-year-old or whatever. I'm like, well, I'm going to find that piece, and it's going to be put in there. It's going to be perfect. It's not. It's. I think I'd paint that differently now. Yeah.
I think that might be the lesson of my life as far as adoption went, was I kept stuffing things in. Like, I met my mother and I stuffed her in, and I was like, oh, I don't feel better. And met my father and stuffed him in, and I still didn't feel better. And, started reading and researching and doing all those things, and didn't really matter how much I filled it up. It didn't fill it up. Like, nothing filled it up. But it was kind of really the process of it was a lot of things that started to make me feel some peace, and feeling the peace started to feel like I had less of a hole, I guess. That probably makes no sense at all, but
no, it does. No, I'm hearing you. I know what you under.
Yeah. So you shared with me that while you haven't actively sought to reconnect with your biological father, there was one particular experience that made you hesitant to reach out. Would you be willing to share that story with us?
I can share that story. It's quite funny. That's the only way I can look at it. So one thing I enjoy doing other than shopping for silver jewelry, with my birth mum, is we love to sit out on a veranda and have a chat and have a wine. And in particular, I'd only known her for about 3 years, I think. And we're sitting on a veranda in Brisbane, and we'd had a few wines, and I just started asking her questions about my birth father and what she could remember when they were dating, because they were together for like 4 years. And I was really having a great chat, and then she's like, oh, well, she still has kind of, in Facebook world today, you'd say mutual, but she still has friends that know kind of what he's doing, but then I don't know. I know his name, but I don't know. I haven't met him. I haven't reached out. But she's like, well, she went into her lounge room, and she got the white pages out and started flicking through the white pages. And I'm like, what? Oh. She's like, I'm going to give him a ring. I'm just going to tell him I'm going to ring him. So I went, oh, that's a great idea. So I don't know. I was not really sure what we were going to do, but anyway, I went with it. And she proceeded to pick up her landline and ring the phone number, and he answered. And she's like, remember that baby we had, 25 years ago? She's sitting on my veranda having a wine with me right now.
Wow.
And with that, I mean, it didn't have him on speaker or anything because we just had the landline phone, big long cord on it. And he's like, oh, right, okay. And, oh, well, she'd love to meet you if, you want to meet her. And the conversation went something along the lines of, he's like, oh, yeah, well, yeah, probably just not at the moment, not now. And, yeah, she kind of hung up. And then I just went, wow, that was a little bit full on. So it's interesting because after that, we just, at the time, we're laughing about it, but I think it was definitely not the right thing to do. And then the other thing for me, I forgot to mention to you too, Joe, is he is actually adopted as well.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as, because I think my birth mum said she'd love to know some health details, even if you could just, give her a bit of a rundown on some medical information. And I think he said to her at the time, he's like, well, I've got, Roz, I still haven't got anything. So, and that's where that ended. So, yeah, but I haven't reached out since. I think I will, but yeah, that kind of just, and I think because I found my birth mum, that was just kind of, as a kid, I was always like, I want to find my birth mum. Don't ever remember having that, real urgency to find my birth father. So
that's very normal for adopted people to be really concentrated on finding their mother at first, and then later on the curiosity about their father sort of pushes to the fore.
Yeah. I think for me lately, it's interesting. We were chatting the other day whether it's something I need to be doing through COVID. It really was a time for me to go, oh, I need to, I think because we're sitting around thinking of things, overthinking things all the time. And you're constantly on social media. I was like, oh, maybe I'll just reach out. And yeah, and so that kind of happened. But it's interesting because we've got 4 children, 3 girls and a boy. And my son, he's the youngest, and he's this giant 40. Well, he's 13, but he's just really tall, and his features. He's just got these beautiful features that I just I have a photo of my birth father, and I just see so many similarities. And whilst he's a lot like my husband, there's definitely similarities from my side of the family, and more so I think my birth father. And he was a tall man too, and people are like, oh, your son's going to be really tall, and they all compare the height to my husband's side of the family, and I'm like, oh, hang on, I know I've got some tall men in my background, but as far as that goes too, I mean, he was adopted as well, so really, and at the time he hadn't had any information or searched either, so it's kind of stopped there. But I think, yeah, it intrigues me with my son because now I have a boy in the family. I'm looking for that. Just mirroring and all of that. Yeah, the physical characteristics too. Yeah.
I definitely think with a different approach the next time, and some support for yourself and him, you may be able to have a different outcome, hopefully. When you're ready, if you're ready.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that with us. I know that would have been a little difficult. So now you've also told me that it wasn't until you're in your 40s, and I don't know if that combined with COVID, but that you really sort of leaned into exploring your adoption experience. What motivated you to start at that point in your life?
Yeah, so it was probably before COVID actually, but it was interesting because my husband and I we made the decision that we are going to get some relationship counselling, and because my husband's big on emotions, he's like this amazing emotional man, and so it was actually his idea, and I'm probably the avoidant. I'm the one in the relationship that's he's the connector, and whereas I'm just like, I'll be right, you're fine, everything's fine. Anyway, we seeked out some counselling, and we went to marriage counselling, and we were only in that for a few months, and the counsellor's like, Charlene, I'd probably like to have a few meetings with you on your own. Like, oh my goodness, I thought I was hiding it really well. And then that led to opening up. He was such, like, the counsellor I had, he's actually retired now, unfortunately. And he was retired at the time. Going into COVID, he just kept Steve and I as clients because everything was over Zoom. So it was really good. I could connect in with him every week, and very skilled psychologist. He's American actually, but lives in Australia, and he had some wonderful experience in adoptee therapy. So he just took me through. We did a lot of inner child stuff. We did a lot of revisiting things. We even did some meditation stuff where I found myself back in the hospital in that 4-week period of when I was, in the hospital waiting for my parents to come and adopt me, I guess. Did some work with that. So that went on for 3 years, that counselling that I had. And then we'd kind of still touch base and do a bit of marriage counselling as well. Yeah. But what I think for my husband and I, it was the core part of what the intimacy and the connection and that real, like I was saying before, Joe, you got the heart in the bag all the time. Like my husband's like, can you get it out of the bag? Can I have some of that? Like, just that that disconnect that comes from being adopted, and then we take into our relationships, and I'm a perfect example of that. So working closely around recognizing why I do the things the way I do, and not blaming everything on the whole thing, but I am adopted, but that separation and that initial start to life of how we came into the world and what we were met with, that just molds, whether it's safety, security, all that stuff, like
sets up a framework, doesn't it, in our lives?
It does, and more so, I'm in my 40s now, but it's taken me ages to actually go, this really defines, our relationship in our marriage. Like, I'm not that I'm to blame for any of it, but I'll take responsibility for a fair bit of the stuff where, the pushing away and the avoidant and the distancing and all that kind of stuff. That's just me. That is me when it comes to wanting to connect. I've got this, gorgeous man that just wants to connect with me, and I'm like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
So that's still a work in progress. Yeah, we're still working on that, but it's good to have awareness now. Yeah.
That's it. Knowing is the key element, isn't it? Because when you're aware of something, you can catch yourself sometimes and think about, what is this I'm feeling? Why am I doing this?
Yeah. And I think what you said before, Joe, too, doing a body scan. Like, I think I'm actually reading a really good book at the moment, slowly reading it, but The Body Keeps Score, and just doing a body scan of, well, why am I responding, to someone hugging me, for example. I'm always the one that calls off a hug. I'm always the one that finishes it. I'm like, okay, that's enough now, done. And in that book, it's really interesting because, I'm like, I always thought I was strange. I'm like, oh wow, I'm not very lovable. Like, that's enough now. And you go to, and whilst I'm an outgoing person, you go to like a party and everyone want to hug and, hey, how you going, and all that. I've been just like so exhausted after it because I'm like, I've hugged so many people today.
Yeah. And do you have, like, I have some beautiful, very close friends that are also cousins, and even my adoptive mother, they want to hug and they want to get in and they want to get heart to heart, long, deep hugs because they get so much out of it. And with my adoptive mother, sometimes I would actually feel like I was on fire and I just wanted to push her physically away. But even my cousins, I tolerate it because I know they want it, but I'm so uncomfortable and I just can't wait for it to be over.
Oh, true. Yes. I am that person as well. Like, you and I could just do a quick hug and that's it, and back off.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're good. Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then those long ones, those aunts that do the whole holding for a long time and then start laughing. Like, let's not that. So yeah, I think that for me, I mean, that can be a whole other podcast, but the intimacy and connection in relationship, I think, is something I mean, I'm not the type of person to write a book, but it's really interesting because I've got this book, this one here.
A long story. Yep. That's a notebook, is it? Yep.
It's just a notebook, and that is mine. It is just everything. Like we said, we're doing body scans of how you're feeling and stuff. And I've actually journaled so much of that around why I respond the way I do. It's yeah, just simple things. And talking to other adoptees, I find it interesting. And there's different traumas people experience, but being separated is a trauma. As a baby. And I think, even the worst thing for me is like if my husband I was dead asleep and he came and just, tapped me on the leg, I would just jump through the roof. It's just, it is just such a strange response, but I'm just a hyper vigilant sleeper.
Yeah.
It's just the most strangest thing. But just unpacking that's been really healthy. So
yeah, that journaling's such a great idea. It's something I've kind of lent into in more recent years, and just even with the body scanning. So I've noticed in the last few years that I don't have a very normal reaction to cortisol, I don't think. So if something triggers me off or I find it very stressful, the cortisol can go through my body. It'll upset my blood sugar, my thyroid, which I have issues with. It can take me weeks or months to come back from that. And I've started to learn that dealing with the cortisol jump. So, if I've had a stressful situation, going to the gym and doing some exercise straight after, or going for a walk straight after, doing something to try and work that out of my body immediately really helps set the baseline back much quicker. And it's just being aware, isn't it? Everyone's different, but being aware and finding some ways to deal with that is so important.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So can I ask, are there any other resources, people or practices that have supported you along the way or that you found helpful?
Yeah, so I think as I've matured into my 40s, I've embraced probably some books that have been thrown my way. I mean, a lot of listeners too would have heard, but yeah, The Primal Wound definitely was a book that has just changed me. I was handed that book probably 15 to 20 years ago, and I just put it on the shelf. I thought, nah. And then, yeah, in my 40s, I've just dug deep. I've read it twice. I love it. It's highlighted. Like, I've just gone through it like a study manual. So The Primal Wound by Nancy Verera. And then the other one of hers that I've got a lot out of is Coming Home to Self.
Yeah, it's the sequel.
Probably, yeah, it's brilliant. It's, talking to your girlfriends or, even counselors, I suppose, you feel like you're not understood a lot. And when you jump into that book, it's just a handbook. I can't describe what it is. It's a manual. It's something that I go, oh, I'm understood in here. It's can jump into the pages and get so much out of it. So those are probably two books I found really helpful, and also having that therapy. That's been really rewarding. And where it was good, like, for COVID being horrible like it was, we went to Zoom. So it became more regular where we had therapy sessions, and I just really enjoyed that. It was so good to have someone to chat to. And what I am probably craving is some kind of adoptee support group. I'm not a part of one, but that's something that I'd like to look at getting involved with in the near future. So
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, it is hard, even for Jigsaw to reach out regionally and get things going, but it's definitely something that's on our radar as well to try and see what we can establish this year and put some more roots out, I guess, into the regional Queensland and see how we can help in that way. Look, Sharlene, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your personal journey with us. Is there any advice or reflections that you'd like to leave us, our listeners, with perhaps for other adoptees who might be on a similar journey?
I probably don't have kind of like a Sharlene quote or anything that I can leave you with. I think it's just so important to. I was listening to a podcast the other day of there's an interview with a lady that had said she's written a book about the 5 regrets that people have that are at nearing end of life, and one of them was actually I was going to say this, but it affected me. So one of them that they said, it was like, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And one thing that really spoke to me is she said, silence was my safety net. Rather than being seen or heard, it was easier not to be noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I say that, like maturity, like a good wine, I suppose, as you get older, I think in my 20s, I didn't have that courage. And now, as I'm older, I kind of look at, if you have the courage to actually express your feelings, then in relationship, it will heal or it will simply fall away. Mm-hmm. And I think when she was talking about that, I went, yeah, I think it's really important to express your feelings. I was probably a people pleaser in my younger life, and I still have got some of those quirks, but yeah, I've definitely learned to really express how I'm feeling about things, but just having that courage and knowing that it can actually heal, like and I have practiced it in certain relationships, and it's very healing. But then also you have that risk of it falling away too, and that can happen too. But yeah, but just embracing all of that. Yeah.
That's great advice. You have left us with the Sharlene quote.
New one, but it kind of makes sense to me at the moment. Just the season I'm in.
Look, it's been an absolute privilege to hear your story. And, I grew up the first part of my life out in on the Darling Downs, so out your way. So I could really identify with a lot of the experiences you had and what it might have felt like being in that space and being an adoptee. So it was just wonderful for me to hear that. And I'm sure it will resonate with a lot of our listeners as well.
Thanks, Jo. Thanks for having me.
For anyone tuning in, just remember that every adoption experience is unique, and it's never too late to begin your own journey of exploration. And if you're looking for more resources, support, or simply a space to share, Jigsaw Queensland's here to help. And if you'd like to support the podcast, leave us a review, share the podcast, or let us know what you think by emailing or calling us. We'd love to hear from you. And meanwhile, if you have a story that you'd like to share with us and you'd like to be interviewed for the podcast, jump on the main podcast page of the Jigsaw Queensland website and complete the prospective guest form that you'll find there. Just remember that Adopt Perspective can be listened to by people all over the world. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Adopt Perspective podcast. If you'd like to find out more, go to the podcast page on www.jigsawqueensland.com. and you'll find a wealth of information and resources on the website. If you reside in Queensland, you can reach Jigsaw Queensland's Forced Adoption Support Service on toll-free 1800 210313, or you can call Jigsaw on 07 33 58 6666. If you live in another state of Australia, you can still call the Forced Adoption Support Service number, and your call will be answered by the Forced Adoption Support Service in the state that you're calling from. In every other state, Relationships Australia operates this service. A big thank you to Matt Sparrow for composing and recording our original theme music. Until next time, I'm Jo Sparrow saying farewell from Adopt Perspective, a podcast for anyone affected by adoption.